What is a subtle sign that someone is really intelligent? Story 1. They can ask really good questions. Edit. To anyone not understanding what I mean, I'm talking about people who ask really good questions. Not just any questions, really good ones. I don't know how one would achieve this skill. I know I haven't. Edit 2. Since this comment is getting a lot of attention, I'd like to say, don't forget to drink your Ovaltine. Reply 1. I worked with a lad who was very like this. He could make any conversation really intriguing and thought-provoking, often causing people to reconsider their perspective and position. He was a HR manager that could defuse any situation, helping people mend bridges and resolving issues because he could get both parties to compromise and put aside resentment. He had IQ and EQ to go a lot further than the role he was in, but he was happy, and maybe that is another little tidbit of intelligence. Story 2. Explaining something complex in simple terms. Knowledge is so vast that they can talk about in the easiest way for someone else to understand. Reply 1. If you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. Albert Einstein is commonly credited for saying something along these lines, but I don't have time to verify that right now. Anyone know the origin of this quote? Reply 2. I thought it was Admiral Rickover. Edit. Nope. I was way off. I was thinking of this quote, but it's about writing, not teaching. Nothing so sharpens the thought process as writing down one's arguments. Weaknesses overlooked in oral discussion become painfully obvious on the written page. Reply 3. I really like that one. It's a really good case for rough drafts too. The older I get, the more I realize how useful it is to write a draft, read the draft, see how dumb some of it is, and then write another one. 50/50 toss-up whether it's better, but it's still progress. Reply 4. Our instructors in nuclear power school taught us that if you can't explain this stuff to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it. Also instructors on first day. You won't understand it, quantum physics, because nobody does. Edited. Grammatical error? Reply 5. I once was hired by a college as a tutor for other students who were having trouble with courses they found difficult, but I had absorbed pretty easily. Electronic stuff mostly. The department head who hired me said something along the lines of, "Pay isn't much. You won't make enough to buy more than a pizza or two a week. But you'll learn stuff about what you teach you never realized you needed to know." You never really grasp a topic until you can explain it clearly to someone else. He was right. Story 3. People who use analogies to explain concepts to others. It's a form of code switching, and integrating concepts on the fly is a clear indicator someone is both socially and conceptually intelligent. Edit. As many have pointed out, not all analogies are helpful or make sense to others. So, a useful analogy that creates an aha moment for someone is a wonderful thing. An analogy is an association, a mental process of connecting an idea or thing to a relatable image for someone who can then see and digest the initial representation. Not using analogies doesn't mean someone can't be intelligent, and social intelligence doesn't mean social ease and charisma. It means an awareness that one's own understanding and experience often has to be translated in ways that others can relate to. Reply 1. I was struggling to explain 3D printing to my elderly neighbor without visual aids. My younger friend pipes up, "Pretend you're sculpting a castle out of hot glue. Think of how you do it, layer by layer." I was so awed at her ability to pull a simple analogy that would work for the old woman. But my friend is a polyglot, a translator by trade, so I shouldn't have been surprised, I suppose. Reply 2. Being a polyglot is another good indicator edited for grammar. Edit. To be considered a polyglot, you should be able to speak at least 4 languages fluently. Reply 3. Meanwhile, here's my dumbass Googling what polyglot means. Edit. It means someone who speaks multiple languages fluently. Reply 4. Kind of related. I tend to find that the most intelligent individuals are able to explain difficult topics/concepts in a manner that is easy for many to understand. Reply 5. It's the foundation of intelligence. At least many cognitive scientists feel that way. This was my area of research. Here's Douglas Hofstadter making the case. Story 4. They can switch up the way they talk to match the person they're talking to without sounding condescending. They listen to how others learn and explain it in that person's language of understanding. Reply 1. No joke. The smartest professor I had in engineering school was also the most humble. She was an astounding human being. By week 2, she knew everyone's names by heart in the intro engineering course. In college, with like 180 students. Later, in upper division classes, people would occasionally ask some really stupid questions, like, it happens, you get so deep into some fluid mechanics derivation or something, you forget something really basic. People would ask a question like this and everyone would be thinking like, wow, how did you even make it this far? But then, it's like she would spot the flaw in their understanding so perfectly, and then respond with such clarity and wisdom that the person asking the question would look less stupid, and the whole class would be enlightened. And here's the thing. I pride myself on being really good at that exact skill. I tutored a lot of people. I was easily one of the brightest amongst my peers. But that woman was on another level. It was mind-blowing. And it wasn't just her intelligence, but her organizational skills, discipline, consistency. And yet, she was so humble. She was quiet and physically quite small. But she just exuded competence and immediately commanded every room she walked into. I've never seen anything quite like it. Reply 2. I am so grateful that people like this exist. If it weren't for the people who are way smarter than me, inventing, discovering, and teaching stuff I never even imagined could make my life better, my life would be so much worse. I had a friend in college whose roommate was a graduate student in physics. He later went to medical school and is now a neuroscience researcher after spending a decade as a neurologist. When I had a brain tumor diagnosed last year, he was the first person I reached out to. He became an advocate and translated what the surgical team was about to do to my head into language I could comprehend. I was and am so grateful. Model those qualities your professor had. People like her make the world a better place. Reply 3. EE here, this happens. Had a bonus question on a midterm, what is a circuit? I was dumbfounded. I can do second-order partial diff EQ to describe how the circuit functions, but I couldn't write out a closed loop where charge may flow. This was in circuits too, so they knew they could trick everyone as we were so deep in the weeds. But one dude in my class got it right. Reply 4. One of my vivid college math class memories was in multivariable calculus. This was week 5 or something, pretty far in. My math professor is writing on the chalkboard and I pause taking notes because I can't figure out the symbol he wrote. I'm puzzling it over, wondering if it's an operation or an uncommon Greek letter or what. Consider whether it's a European shorthand because the prof's Scottish. Then I realize it's a 7. The numeral 7. I'd gone through weeks of a math course and this was the first time I saw him write one of the basic building blocks of kindergarten math. I cross my 7s too, so it's not like I'm unaware. Just huge brain fart moment. Reply 5. John von Neumann would carry on a conversation with my 3-year-old son, and the two of them would talk as equals, and I sometimes wondered if he used the same principle when he talked to the rest of us. Edward Teller. Story 5. They know when their knowledge ends and say something to the extent of, I don't know, and anything else I say on this topic is ignorant speculation. Reply 1. Favorite line I got from a professor that made me genuinely realize I can have my own thought was, that's a great question that I don't know, but we need to talk about. Conveyed immediate interest, but kept her same professional knowledge base, which allowed me to explore my ideas with her. It really showed me what discourse is all about. Edit. Thank you for Silver. I really didn't anticipate this to have such an impact. I noticed a lot of people saying they had similar experiences with teachers. I encourage you all to reach out and share how grateful you are for those experiences. I also encourage you all to share your thoughts whether you find them original or not. This can be anonymously or not, but you truly won't learn until you and others actively question your belief system consistently. Find friends that support you and encourage these conversations. Reply to this. I was in a convo with a guy who has a PhD in infectious diseases this summer, and asking him about COVID, etc. While all of us speculate and regurgitate crap we see online, he was so upfront about saying, well, I haven't seen the data on that, so I can't speak on it. Or, that's not my area of study, so I'm not sure. It was eye-opening. Out of all of my friends who could give a coherent and educated opinion about this, he was the first to take himself out of the convo because he knew what he didn't know. Reply 3. He knew what he didn't know. That's exactly it. We are living in a time of the Dunning-Kruger effect gone awry. Reply 4. This is the worst thing about politics in the US right now. If you admit you don't know something, some people will just stop listening to anything you say. If they ever were to begin with. Reply 5. These are my favorite kinds of people. Anytime I ask a question and the person both doesn't know the answer but also becomes intensely interested in exploring possibilities. Story 6. They are curious about everything. To be intelligent, you need to be knowledgeable, and you can't be knowledgeable if you are never curious. Reply 1. You can memorize a bunch of random facts and repeat them, that's knowledge. But knowing what to do with that knowledge, how to apply it, how to make sense of it, is what I think real intelligence is. Richard Feynman captured that mindset perfectly in his book. Reply 2. I'm dumb as hell in that case. I'm curious about just about everything. I will spend weeks studying a newfound topic of interest. Then I might move on to something else while retaining interest in everything I had researched prior. While retaining interest, I might only retain half of the stuff I had learned, and could explain less than that if someone asked about the topic. And I will have done nothing with any particular interest of mine, outside of somewhat satisfying my curiosity. Writing this out confirms the ADHD diagnosis a little more in my mind. Reply 3. Don't be too hard on yourself. As someone else with ADHD, I know that feeling of going down the rabbit hole on something that's new and novel but doesn't have anything to do with my regular interests. To quote you/ordinary painter, free 28 elsewhere in this thread. By having enough knowledge and experience across different domains, such that they can see similarities, differences, and spot missing information that is worth asking a question about. It's impossible to quantify, but you never know when you'll find yourself in a situation that sparks a thought. This reminds me of that random thing I read on Wikipedia that one time. Maybe it's applicable here? You mentioned only retaining half the stuff you learned. That's 100% more than learning nothing at all. Satisfying curiosity isn't a negative thing. You shouldn't feel bad if you find something interesting that doesn't have a specific purpose or end goal. Things are interesting. Story 7. I think intelligent people are more willing to calmly debate/discuss rather than argue. Like, you explain to them why you disagree and they listen to you and you ask further questions about your viewpoint before offering a different perspective, as opposed to an unintelligent person who would just resort to insults when other people disagree with them. Reply 1. Someone had a different political view as me and I was trying to genuinely listen to them. Then they made fun of me for going to UVU, unlike their top 100 school, and I knew it was hopeless. Story 8. They draw wisdom from multiple sources. Wait, but that might be more wise than intelligent. But I guess those two tend to be seen together a lot. Reply 1. It is important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. Eero. Story 9. Humor. I think that truly funny people are often very smart and cognizant of the different ways an idea can be humorous on several levels. They also know their audience. I think the difference between, say, a Jeff Foxworthy and a Dave Chappelle and a Bo Burnham is their audience and their interests. Reply 1. I spent some time with Buddhist monks from various Asian countries, and one notable thing they all had in common was how much they laughed and joked. Just a happy, hilarious bunch all around. One I remember, my roommate and I slept through the 6 a.m. meditation and saw the teacher at lunch. Oh, sorry. He laughed and said, "You were doing the sleeping meditation. Laugh out loud." Reply 2. The priest at the church I used to attend would always ask if I was celebrating Mass at the Church of St. Mattress when I was late. It amused the hell out of me. Reply 3. You need a wide knowledge base of reference material to make a lot of comedic connections. If someone is really quick-witted with jokes, they're probably a genius in some way, even if they don't realize it. Reply 4. There was a huge discussion on this very topic on the comedian Christopher Titus's podcast a week or two ago. It was utterly fascinating listening to him talk about the technical side of comedy, how much he has to keep up with current events in order to make jokes about them, etc. Reply 5. It was mentioned on Mike Birbiglia's podcast too. Forget who the guest was, but Mike complimented them on how smart they were, and the response was something like, "I'm not smart, I just have a large reference base." And I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's very similar. Story 10. Talking to people as if they're intelligent at their level and without being condescending or even letting on that it's lower than their level. I used to work with a doctor, Tom Howard, and the day I realized he was a genius was the time he guessed every single condition a patient of mine had based on minute pieces of information about him. Story 11. They apply knowledge from one realm into a new and relevant situation. For instance, one person described a situation, might have been on Reddit, where they were a new assistant in an academic research lab and fixed a snag that stumped all the senior researchers, including the professor. The team was trying to video record their project using a strobe light, and their footage wasn't working as planned. When no one else made progress at diagnosing or solving the problem, the most junior individual spoke up and suggested that the strobe could be out of phase. They remembered that video typically records at a rate of 24 frames per minute. Second, thanks for the correction, and explained that along with suggesting a change to the strobe's flash rate so it would coincide with the recording. This worked, and it really raised up that individual's reputation within the group. Inwardly, they were almost embarrassed about the source of this knowledge. They had a gaming hobby back in high school and had taken some video footage of that, and discovered the standard frame rate while playing around in editing software. But they remembered that detail years later and realized it made a difference in a completely different context. That is intelligence. Reply 1. 24 frames a minute. I'm sure you mean per second, my good sir. 24 frames a minute can hardly be called a video. Reply 2. 24 frames a minute can hardly be called a video. That's like some 90s dial-up internet speeds, laugh out loud. Story 12. There is also this lovely thing I like to call intelligence by association. I am a prime example of this. My small rural town seems to think I'm a genius simply because I can read at a level above your average 4th grader, when in fact, I'm a high-functioning moron. Reply 1. If you are the smartest person in the town, move to another town. Become the mayor and rule over the plebs. Story 13. People who are genuinely curious about the world ask questions and listen to others instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. Also, they don't view education as just a means to get a job. Story 14. Dynamism and creativity. I really don't agree with that old notion of an intelligent person, as someone with social difficulties who's good at logical thinking. This is just one single possibility among dozens of others.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.